All right. Welcome back, everybody, to the Unlocked podcast.
Oh, we just jumped right in. We're just going there.
Yes. We are
First
three
take
business
Tony.
owners, and today we are going to be talking to you about learning to learn. We've done a lot of episodes on the importance of learning as a CEO, and we figured it'd be a good idea to talk
Lots
a little.
of locks, learning to learn.
Yes,
Tony
just,
in his titles.
You know, Lars,
Title Tony.
Lingefeld, just going with the L alliteration here. So I think we also might have a jingle that we're going to play a little bit later on today. Big thanks to Nick. What was the gentleman's name? Nick.
Just ruined the surprise, Tony.
Oh, I mean, you can crop that out if you want.
Go ahead with your intro.
Yeah, that was all I got. So we're gonna,
It's 42 seconds in, and I've had about enough.
Yeah, good. No one would be disappointed if you left.
Oh man,
Yeah.
Tony,
It's spicy.
Sparky,
That was
as I might say. Sparky. Yes.
Okay, so good morning, guys. How you doing?
Good.
I'm good, Chad. How are you doing? I do want to point out that you guys sound great.
Yeah.
No thanks to you, but this fancy new microphone.
We all have our new microphones now.
Dude,
that was impressive.
We're real now.
I mean, we have a website and we have real microphones. So
we're ahead of the MSc program already. We got a website. I don't know if Joey, you're listening this week,
boy.
but yeah, that's a shot. But
yeah, it is. Okay. Big thanks to HWP. Todd Dunsmore helped hook us up with some quality microphones for everybody. When we started this, it was really, could we convince Tony to do this podcast with us for like 12 episodes? That was what we got him to commit to. And we're actually on episode 20.
Episode 20. This is episode 20 today.
21.
Yes, 20.
If anybody's counting.
It's 20.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, we had that weird moment last episode where you split it into 3 and just threw me off the rails. So you're right. This might be 21. Who knows?
Whatever episode that was, it was the first episode of the Failing Forward, the Mistakes podcast. If you haven't caught that one, go back in and just fast forward to like 25, 26 minutes into the podcast and wait for Tony's absolute meltdown. It was hilarious. Okay. So in the meantime, we have been getting a lot more feedback from some of the 3 or 4 listeners that we have out there. And this one gentleman, Nicholas Rice, contacted and said he's one of our 4th listeners, and which is really awesome. But he said, hey, you guys need a jingle. So he used AI to create a jingle for us, and it's incredible. So I want to share it because there's some gold gems in there. Are you guys ready?
It's some gold. Lay it on us,
Ladies and gentlemen, live from studios unknown, broadcasting straight to your ears. For the podcast that breaks barriers, picks locked ideas, and unlocks the truth of the lock industry. Welcome to Unlocked. Introducing your host, locked in a triangular ring.
Triangular ring, I like that.
The collaborative leader that fosters a growth-oriented culture, Tony Hawkinson. And in the other corner, the man with the plan, the visionary leader who empowers his employees. John Lingefeld.
John.
It really nailed our last name to the AI.
The enigma, the ever so polite.
That's wild card and ever so polite. 2 opposites.
That was the AI hallucination.
I think that was bang on. That's me, Lars Johnson.
Listen up and get ready because this is Unlocked.
I mean, it really does set the tone up here for us.
It does.
And we got a little bit of Irish folk dance in there.
Yeah, a lot more excitement than my
You
intro. that's
compare
for sure.
that to anything Tony's ever done.
Yeah.
Hello, welcome to the Unlocked podcast. Like, let's go. The ever so polite gets a thumbs up. That was awesome, Nick.
Oh, that got me. I was cracking up whenever he sent that over. So big shout out to Nicholas for sharing that with us.
The triangled ring.
That is how you know that AI isn't all the way there when they think that you're polite.
Yeah.
Truth of the lock.
Yeah, exactly. I love this. I just got this little soundboard here.
Ladies and gentlemen.
I just want to hit that every once in a while.
Yeah.
All right.
That's perfect.
Yeah, that was
Okay.
great. So we may have to upload that as just a special episode for people just to be able to listen to that whenever they are feeling down. They can.
Tony Hawkinson. That's
All right.
times. Yes.
What are we discussing today? By the way, I can't remember.
Learning
Tony.
to learn. So why is it important for people to learn, especially CEOs? And then how have we found are the best ways for people to learn? What we may have differences. I think everyone learns in different fashions. So just want to go through some different ways to learn and help you develop as a CEO and talk about the pros and cons for that and learn a little bit about that.
All right.
I'm interested about the cons of learning, Tony. Maybe
well,
I'll let
more
you
like
dive into
different
that
ways
one.
of learning. So, we'll
okay.
get there.
Okay. Yeah, the cons of learning. That's a good topic.
So just to refresh everybody, we've talked a little bit about this, but Chad, why do you think it's important for CEOs to learn?
Well, why do I think it's important for CEOs to learn? You're going to be stagnant if you don't. You've limited your pool of knowledge. You're just working off of your known limitations at that point. So, I mean, the base foundation around it is growth and expansion, opening up your mind to additional concepts and ideas. Yeah, I mean, it just seems like a natural progression. Why would someone stop learning, especially in that leadership role?
I mean, I think that seems obvious to us, but I think there's plenty of people out there that I know that don't put effort into learning. So I think,
well, if as a leader of the organization, if you're not, no one is, right? That's kind of the way I look at it. Not it's actually part of my role to challenge the norm, to try new things, to, hear different viewpoints. Every once in a while, it's possible that maybe I'm not right. That doesn't happen often. Almost never actually, but it is still possible is where I would leave that. So, reading different viewpoints, having conversations with others that might not agree with you, I think is definitely very important there, because, it's your job. And if not, I think that ties in, being in that whirlwind and that day to day, just getting so focused in on the business that you're every single day, you're in it rather than, above it and looking forward.
Well, and I think that's important to acknowledge that it is very easy to get trapped in that day to day. And if you're not intentionally learning, I heard this somewhere that you're basically the biggest bottleneck to growth. So if you kind of touch on this, Chad, but if you're not growing yourself, you're going to inhibit your organization's growth, and it can only grow as competent as you are. And if you're trapped in that day to day and you're busy running sales calls or running service calls or, processing invoices, and you're not spending time learning, you're not going to grow, and the organization therefore is not going to grow.
Yeah, it's actually one of the things that I heard from someone. I was at my business coach, actually, Kurt Graves.
Name drop.
Probably 6 months ago. He was explaining to me, Chad, you really need to embrace the fact that as a leader, as a CEO of your organization, part of your daily responsibilities is to be learning. It's personal development. And just as you have to value it in there in the same way that you would, reviewing P&Ls and focusing on budgets and setting up strategic plans for the future of the organization.
Yeah.
Personal development. It's all really the same because
it's part of your job.
It's part of your job. And I think
the most important part of your job.
Well, it is
one of the
element.
Most,
it's one of the most important parts, and you have to put it on the same level as what you would think of as the tactical application of your job on a day-to-day basis. But oftentimes that gets sidetracked or pushed to the bottom of the priorities because I think as a human, you probably look at it as it's a normal factor for humans to look at that effort as a non-immediate return.
It's not as tangible. I mean, you can shuffle the things on your desk and move from one spot to the other, but actually learning and reading something, you don't see that tangible result immediately.
So here's one thing. I heard this the other day, and I think it might be applicable to this. We either spend time preparing or reacting. We typically, as humans, don't quantify reacting as time because it's our default. So it says to say we devalue preparation time because we see it as an inhibitor of the reaction time that we currently do. That's just our natural tendency. So preparation gets put on the back burner because it seems like we're having to go above and beyond to do that. We just really would absorb our time naturally in the reactive mode and not quantify it. And it's really opened up my eyes a lot, just, over the last couple of weeks of thinking around that concept of the preparation versus reacting. And I think, this topic today around learning to learn or staying, that personal development aspect of it is spending your time on preparation and being ready to respond when the need comes up. I don't know about you guys. I see Lars has got books, four or five books behind his back there. But we all have spent time reading, listening to books, trying to consume that information. And have you ever been sitting in a meeting with some of your team or in the middle of a situation, and then all of a sudden you go, "Oh man, here's a way that we can handle that," and it's a recall to a book or a chapter of a book that you processed 2 years ago, and then all of a sudden you recall it and it's applicable in that situation. Have any of you ever had that situation?
Yeah, no, never for me. But no. Yeah, it's one of those things where you don't realize it until you realize it. I'm excuse me, but I first got to say, I've never heard the word applicable before. Applicable I've heard of, but not applicable. That's 2 words in North Carolina. But if
we had extra syllables.
Yeah, if we could just ignore that for a minute, thinking of what's applicable. Yeah. I mean, there's a handful of books, and the word we use all the time. But before I'm diving into book specific, but being intentional about this is something. Like, I don't know about you guys. Were you guys always avid readers?
No, I wasn't.
I hated reading.
Yeah.
And that's, like Tony, I don't think you can read. That's your problem. But the biggest challenge.
Thanks for calling that out. I couldn't figure that out until you said that.
He's been trying to keep that under wraps for a while.
Yeah, that's why there isn't subtitles on the podcast, because But reading, I think, especially as the world becomes more digital, sitting down and taking the time to read a book or to run through a thing or even read your notes just becomes harder and harder. Yeah. And you naturally feel less valued, or you get less value out of it. So being intentional about it, the word we use all the time, and it annoys me to even say it out loud. But the setting aside an intentional time, even if it's 20 minutes, even if it's 5 minutes, to get yourself in that habit, because that's really, I think what we're all going to say is you have to make a habit out of it. And that's, that's kind of the first step for anyone that, think I'm not a reader. There's Audible is great, audiobooks, books themselves. But if you're not a reader, calendar block something for 20 minutes just to read a book. That's honestly the best start.
So you mentioned audiobooks, consuming books in some way, shape, or form. What is your guys' preferred method for consuming literary content?
Oh, I use Audible a lot.
Okay. And why is that?
Well, because it's a real struggle, honestly. It's not that I can't read, but even as an adolescent,
sounds like that's 2 of us.
Yeah, it was a struggle
today,
to sit
Junior, and
read a book and stay still and read and keep my mind focused on that. And so I've found, that if I'm moving and I'm doing something physical activity, like that distracts me from what I'm doing, like from sitting there reading. So it's a bit complicated for me to read a book and walk simultaneously. So it causes trip hazards and all that stuff. Correct. Same thing. So I found that Audible does a really good job. I first started picking that up when I was running. And so I could go just run 3 or 4 miles and capture a good section of an audiobook. And I could retain it because it was a distraction. There was 2 fighting, distractions. So that's just been my consumption. Now, one of the things I did, and I picked this up for a tip from somebody else a while ago, is grabbing the physical copy as well as the audio copy and like really kind of double in.
That's genius. I wonder who said that.
Dale Bowman, I think, was the person that originally mentioned that to me.
Oh, Dale Bowman. Give me a break, Dale.
But one of the things I did, and I've got an entire catalog of books over there, but for a period like between 2020 and 2022, I was, I basically had created a habit where I would do the Audible book. And then once I completed it as a celebratory factor, I would buy the physical copy and put it on my shelf. And it was just a physical like memorandum of the fact that I completed this book, and it was a reference point. So if ever I was in the middle of a conversation, I could just go grab that book and thumb through it. And case in point, a couple of weeks ago, we were having the conversation around, I don't remember what it was, one of our episodes, and I was referencing this book. And I read this book in 2019, I think. I mean, it's 6 years old, 2021 maybe, I don't remember. But it helped me with understanding how to manage my time. And so it's a reference point. It sticks with me for a long period of time. That was my point of having that physical copy. But that's my preference.
Yeah, and I remember telling one of you years ago about, listening on Audible first and then buying the book after. Now, I don't remember who that was exactly. It was probably Dale Bowman that told me. Unbelievable. But and my reasoning for that was, it's twice as expensive and a good waste of money. But two, I like having the physical book because I make notes. I make notes in the book, and that's how I actively engage in it. Because what I find when I'm on Audible is I'll be listening, and what it'll do is it'll prompt something in my mind, bring it back to my context and my reality, and then I'll start thinking through that. And then, of course, 2 minutes or 3 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever is passed through Audible, and I can go back. But having that physical book, allows me to kind of stay present and really focus on what's happening. So, I don't know what book, Chad, what book did you have there?
This is Free to Focus by Michael Hyatt. So here's the other thing on that, Lars. You just said it's double the investment, obviously. Just to throw out an interesting concept, Audible, and this is not a pro Audible because we get no benefit
unless you're sponsoring Audible. If you're in it,
if Jeff Bezos wants to give us a call, here's the thing: it's a subscription to Audible is like $17 a month, rounding up or down. That's U.S. currency. I don't know what that is in Canadian, but
we're American now.
It gives you a credit a month, basically, so you can get a book a month. $204 annually as an investment into learning. If you were to buy the physical copy as well, on average, just say about $20 a book, that's another $240. So you're talking about $445 a year.
An expensive dinner.
Yeah.
Investing in your, and there's plenty of other things that we've blown $400 on if you look at it.
That's honestly, Chad, your cost of golf balls in a week. The way you hit it, it's honestly not much different.
It's correct. So it's really a minor, when you look at it at an annual basis, it is a minor investment for the growth. And I could tell you over a 5-year span, you've got, what is that now? We're doing hard math. $250 or $450 times 5. What's that?
That sounds like $2,250.
Okay. So over 5 years, $2,000, $2,500 investment I can tell you over 5 years, the books that I've read, it's multiplied the return on that.
Oh yeah.
100.
Yeah. It's, I don't know if I've already, given a plug for Profit First. We talked about that, and I think I prefaced it by saying it's the worst book I've ever bought and has had the biggest impact on our business.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, it was a great,
but I like the idea of buying the book. I don't do that, but I do tend to read different books different ways. So if it's a very content heavy book, I will buy it and read it in person. I feel like I like to highlight stuff and I retain it better. If it's like a biography or something that is less heavy, I will listen to it. I like listening to it when I drive. Kind of like you said, Chad, it helps you can focus on the book a little bit better if you're doing something else while listening. But I would encourage anyone to, if you're not reading, I think reading gets a bad rap because you're forced it down your throat in school and you're supposed to read. And people are like, well, I don't like reading. Well, have you tried listening? Have you tried audiobooks? And it's less about the act of reading and more about gaining the information and figuring out which way works for you. And like you said, for Audible, you pay $17 a month. You also get a bunch of free books with that. And you can listen to it while you drive. You can listen to it wherever. So,
and it just triggers, all these thoughts in your mind. And I mean, as much as I can't handle spending much time with you bozos. The fact that we're reading a lot of the same books, it allows us to bounce it and, make it specific to our industry and talk about, referencing different books. And Chad, it's interesting when you said between 20 and 22, it's like that was a major turning point. There was a few things going on in the world. So we had a fair amount of time to ourselves. But that's really like, I went from reading probably 2 or 3 books to, I don't know, probably 20.
Yeah.
Right. It was,
there was a time too where we had collected a group of people and we were doing a kind of a book club, and we were just that period of time during the pandemic. I was consuming so many books and podcasts, everything at that time. It was almost to a point of overload when I reflect back on it now, because I couldn't apply all of it. And it was just, I felt like I was just being, I don't know, too much of a sponge. Yeah. So, I kind of took a break for a while and then got back into a more consistent level. But, just the other day, I sent you guys a recommendation on a book that I started listening to, Executive Presence 2.0. And it's really just a book around how you should carry yourself at a certain level, like more so specifically, I don't know have you guys started listening to it?
Mm-mm.
Great.
No.
Cool. Great recommendation. It really kind of talks.
I've actually blocked you, so I didn't.
It kind of talks around, the things that are important and that make an impact on people. So, that first impression type thing and all that. But you start to listen to it and you go, okay, well, how do I apply this to me? Yeah. What's effective, what's not, and then you can take that and carry it on and bring it into your team. So it's a great thing. But podcasts are very similar. Yeah, there's a lot of really great content out there around just conversation. As a matter of fact,
you're listening to one right now.
You're listening to one right now.
Yeah,
but Simon Sinek, I listened to I guess it was a podcast / video on YouTube. I don't know. The other day with Simon,
Glenn's buddy, right?
Yeah, that's Simon's buddy.
Glenn's buddy, right?
He was interviewing an author around a book around kind of a behavioral process, and
I think I listened to that one.
Yeah, it was very insightful. Not 100% applicable. It was like, how is parenting relative to leadership?
Yep.
And there was a lot of little golden great nuggets in there, and you pull that out, and then but. Also, that leads to another book read, right? So there's a lot of, you can get the little snippets from podcasts, but consuming that audio.
Chad, I do want to dive into a couple other ones, but give us a book recommendation. Give us one. Tony, I'm coming to you next, so be prepared.
Yeah, if you would have given me a little bit of head up. Did you have one?
You can't give
Do I have one? I mean, well, I'm going to reference the one sitting right behind me. Okay.
So we can't see that one.
Well, you can't right now, but you can on YouTube. But the first one is Traction. We've talked about that ad nauseum. So Traction, Gino Wickman, absolute must read. If you haven't read it, you should go do it. Second, this is one I don't recommend listening to. 4 Disciplines of Execution. Yeah, right. It's a complete change in mindset of goal setting and how to implement a strategy. Third one, is Elon's book. I'm not sure if you've heard of him, but he's pretty popular right now. And the fourth one I'm going to give a plug to is it's a fiction book. And I hand this book out to virtually everyone I know. I have about 15 copies upstairs. It's called Atlas Shrugged, which is, it just changed my mentality. So it's about 1,200 pages.
Yeah, that's a hefty one to bite off. The Elon book, you're talking about his biography by Walter Isaacson?
Yeah, he's got 2 biographies.
Yeah, so this was the first one.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah. The one by Walter Isaacson's, I can tell you is incredible. And I processed that one maybe within the last year. And one of the big takeaways on that, not to spoil it, but delete until you have to start adding things back.
Yes.
That's you watch the government right now, that's
exactly what he's doing.
Yes.
He's got one formula and he's executing on that right now. Okay. A couple of recommendations for you. And these are more recent for me. How to Change by Katie Milkman and Angela Duckworth. It talks about the process. Now, it's a good tie into the James Clear book, Atomic Habits. If you're focused on, hey, I can't figure out how to just get things going. I feel like I'm scattered. I don't have a good methodology around my life. How to Change is great.
Process.
Yeah. And she talks a lot about changing the default. That's the big thing. Like, and I think I shared an example of that before. And then another one by John Acuff, which I love John Acuff's writing style. He's very got a lot of humor in his writing, but very practical. And his latest book is All It Takes Is a Goal. And it talks about just charting different goals and structures and how to accomplish something. And the reason some of this has been important to me, and while Tony's getting his recommendations ready, the reason those have been important to me is over the past 12 months, my role has changed drastically. I went from having a very packed calendar to, I started my day in the office in the morning and I had meeting after meeting after meeting, and I didn't have a lot of breath or space in my day. To over the past 12 months, I've been able to.
I can't imagine relating to that.
Yeah. I've been able to change. We've hired some people. I've delegated some of those things off. And then, so my calendar got a lot more space in it. And what I found for me as an individual that I would classify myself as very driven, I all of a sudden became lost in where do I need to spend my time? And if I didn't have some structure there, then I was going to just chase crazy, shiny things all the time. And one of the things I was concerned about was, one, stagnancy, and two, just kind of getting lost. So, I started diving into these books, and because I have found myself not having a good scheduled structure for a while, and those are elements that are not good for me personally. So it's helped me to kind of recraft when I do need to change something, and or how do I accomplish a next big goal? How do I set that target and then run after it heavy? So those are the reason that I kind of went down the path on those books. Tony, where are you at?
Cool.
What are your recommendations?
I got 5, and they're in a logical order here. So first one I would recommend people read is Extreme Ownership. It's all about taking ownership of what you're doing. Don't blame others. There's only the one thing you can control. It's yourself. It's a military book. A lot of military
Leaf?
Story. Yeah. No, it's Leif Babin and Jocko Willink, whatever.
Right. Yeah.
There's like a military story and then a concept. Military story, concept. I mean, if you don't like the military, you can read the concepts. That's where all the meat is, but the stories really do help.
It's good leadership.
Yes, it's a great leadership book. I would start with that. Second one, Lars recommended E-Myth to me about 7 years ago. Extremely good book on systematizing your business. To me, it's a lot more digestible than Traction. Traction's really heavy to start with. E-Myth really helps you understand why you need systems and processes. After that, I would go to Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. Something that I need to reread, but it's all about basically delegation and figuring out how to put yourself in that visionary role and lead through others. After that, I would go to Radical Candor. Really good book about leading a team, giving honest feedback, and how it's important to not just give feedback, but give it very candidly, and how to give that feedback.
Lead with caring.
Yes. And then lastly, Growing a Team. Anything by Patrick Lencioni is really good. I really like how he writes his books with stories. It actually makes it interesting to read, and then he ends with
ego.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a lot of books there, Tony. That's an entire year's worth of reading.
Yeah. My favorite by him is 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. They're all really good, but that one especially, really with building a team, it's one we read as a leadership team 5-6 years ago, and actually have on a recommended reading list for our employees. So
yeah.
Ooh, that's an interesting concept that you just said. A recommended reading list for your employees. That's something we might need to dive into.
Yes.
Do
you want to dive into it, or
can you think of the alliteration of the title of that podcast, Tony?
Recommended reading for required
employees.
Really good on my feet here.
So, what about classes? Because we're going to need to take a break here to get prepped for our next episode momentarily. So I just wanted to give a little bit of
thanks for that heads up
for Tony, so that he doesn't have another meltdown on us. But
one of these times I'm going to cut it to break without you knowing. See how you like that? Yeah,
salty.
I would be ecstatic.
I'm just going to middle of a topic when you got something on your mind. Be like, all right, well, we will be.
How
back.
do you like that, Chad?
Ooh,
what if Tony does this
sparky
to you?
Yeah, so sparky. Get at it, Tony.
Yeah.
Yes.
So a recommended reading list for your employees, that's something that you have published.
In the process of publishing. Yes.
Oh, is it
It
something?
is a new thought that we had. We were
There's
working on
something
building out
about being
our
a
internet.
bottleneck
Yes.
Yeah,
No,
in
this
the
one's,
organization.
we have, I think, some out there. We're working on refining it to be basically by topic and by role. So what books, I just laid 5 books out for leaders. Some of those are applicable to employees. Some of them maybe not as much. So we're categorizing them by role. And we have it on our internet.
Yeah. I think I've got a couple of videos that I've put together over the years with, the top 10 books that I would recommend. So I could probably link that as well. Cause we could go on and on forever about the different list of books. But it is, I think the takeaway from this is, at least this part of the conversation, is get started somewhere. Just consume that.
Build the habit.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at a lot of these audiobooks, the ones that we just recommended are going to be somewhere between 4 and 8 hours of listening time. So, you take that into a half an hour a day, and you're going to knock these things out in a little over a week, 2 weeks, and now you're just starting to build a totally different way of thinking, and at least application and some practical application around how to implement it.
Because if you're not, no one else is.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what you have to understand.
Reiterate what you said earlier. I've caught myself in a similar trap of reading too much and then not doing anything about it. My biggest tip for people would be to be intentional about what you want to learn.
Reading
and read
too much and deliberating around it?
Yeah.
Not doing it?
Analyzing something for years at a time.
Yes.
And then
I would be intentional about figuring out what you want to learn, and go into that topic and read it slowly and implement it.
I disagree with that. Yeah, I don't like that.
Why?
Because I have
You were the one
because
that
you
just said
said
it.
it,
You said it.
No,
It was
no.
literally like you said. Don't read too quickly. You literally just said it 10 minutes
No,
ago.
well, I'm saying I have the thing about focusing on what you want to learn and then read about it. I mean, I get the concept. Because I have just kind of opened I'll go through this Audible list and go, oh yeah, this looks interesting, and read it. I learned something that I wasn't expecting to learn.
Yeah, but I think you can go down too much of a rabbit hole there. Like, I want to learn about this. I want to learn about this. Like, figure out what you're struggling with in your company and improve that.
I think we are diving into different personality types here just a touch, where Tony is more structured. You should do one thing at a time. And Chad's
actually,
like, no, do it all the time.
I am saying it based on experience. Like, I have done exactly what Chad is saying, and it has led to me not implementing stuff, because I'll read one book on employee development. I'll read another book on sales. I'll need another book on finance. And I go from topic to topic and don't implement it. Yes.
Yeah. So, and you can't decide what's first. Yeah.
I guess my main takeaway is make sure that you're actually taking action on what you're reading and not just reading to gain the knowledge, because there is some benefit to having that knowledge, and it helps you, like you said, in having, recalling it in future conversations, and you're still learning, but make sure you're slowing down to implement what you're actually learning.
Or even better, have a partner or somebody that can do that for you.
Yes.
That's what I found works best.
Yeah. Okay. So we need to take a break.
Sure.
And get turned around for episode 22 or 21 or 23. Will that work?
Yeah.
Are you okay with that,
You're
Tony?
okay with that?
Is that acceptable?
That was such a
You did a much better
question.
job of actually planning. Hey, this is coming.
Oh,
Instead of me having like 7 thoughts that I actually want to get out before the end of the episode, and then you just say, "Oh, sorry, you don't get to talk."
One of my top 5
At least you're over it.
memories in podcasting was that 25-minute mark on whatever episode it was, and Tony just. The second one was the time.
It was the mistakes. It was the mistakes episode.
Yeah.
We're talking about our best mistake. 25-minute mark. Tony, somebody unplugged him, and he just
because that's never happened to you before.
Yeah, as I said, one of the other ones where we were recording a podcast for the coffee break, and Tony asked Lars a question, and
didn't like my answer. No, he asked me how many acquisitions we'd made, and I said, I don't know, it's like 6-ish, and he was like, "Ish. How can you do
just completely short-circuited him?"
He just went into buffer mode.
Yeah, and that was
great. Okay. That was a fun one to recover from. In the meantime, while you're waiting for the next part of this episode, because it's going to be awesome, we're going to be talking about classes to learn, peer groups, and business coaches. Is that kind of where we're headed?
Yeah, it's the things that we're doing right now.
Yeah.
Perfect. How we're trying to learn and how to apply it. We're going to be sharing those insights with you on the next episode. So make sure you subscribe so you can get that. Unlockedpodcast.com is the website where all the information is housed. The links to all of the podcast subscriptions there, to our YouTube channel, all that stuff is there. There is a video version of every single one of these episodes as well as an audio version. So make sure you're subscribed because, I mean,
and now with jingle.
Ladies
and gentlemen.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Oh yes, that's great. So thanks again for Nicholas Rice for sending us that AI generated jingle. We're trying to figure out how we can implement it. Tony Hawkinson and
the ever so polite.
Whatever that was. So subscribe and we'll see you next week on the Unlocked podcast. See you guys.